Alright guys, the moment you've been waiting for, controlling your rocket and moving it. So if you're at this point, you got your rocket's internals, you've retracted every single umbilical, which I completely forgot. Very important, you retract all the umbilicals. Your rocket is built, your rocket is fueled, your rocket has been tested so that you know how it performs, and you are ready to finally send it out into space to hopefully do stuff. This is probably the exciting part. Now, before you get loud, before we just push the button to let it go, we got I gotta cover the three screens in a little bit more detail. You've seen the rocket screen because we've been using it for all sorts of diagnostics on it. You know, the top left is going to be, your destinations, particularly being careful about the gravity, acceleration. We're going to the rest of this is going to come into play when it's landing, but not right now. The bottom left we've paid a lot of attention to find out what's the mass of a rocket, what's the weight, how much fuel we got, how much battery power we got. So all that is important. Now you do have little messages down here, as it just says out of fuel or not. That's fine. You can remove the messages. Up here is how you can select between different rockets. You've seen that. But I do want to make a mention on the devices list right here. Now, you can favorite devices, like for example, I personally like to always favorite my engine because I want to know about its performance. Maybe other active devices, you can favorite them as well. And within them, you can actually favorite specific aspects of them. Like, for example, if you want to, for some reason, lock the rocket miners or something like that. Or find out drill condition, put that up at top. Or, for the cargo storage, do you want to know how much is in there, or whether it's open or on or not, stuff like that. Take the time to really, really customize your rocket interface for what you'd expect to like. And, for the engines, I like to know how the throttle, how many moles is passing, and that's about it, to be honest. But, do the same thing for other devices. Just take the time to do that. And for example, the rocket Celestial right now is tracking Earth, which is cool. And any other pieces, just take the time, get used to that, because when you're going to be controlling your rocket and more manually, you kind of would like to have that level of detail to know, quick scan to see. It's like, okay, what's fuel, what's total, all that stuff. You just take the time for that. So, with that in mind, before we can launch a rocket, we have to go to the map. Oh, finally, the space map. And we're going to see my other rockets and their silos right there. Now, the thing that is not really very apparent is that when you first launch your rocket, now, there was an update, this little black box with the rockets that used to be down here, below the planet itself. For the rocket to go anywhere, you have to select the destination. And for a planet that literally only has a single question mark, you're probably wondering, well, how do I get there? And these lines just denote how it's traveling to. Well, the very first destination that you will always have unlocked is the orbit, which is the planet itself. Just click on that. That is the orbit. If you want to go to the landing pad, you can click specifically on the landing pad itself, and that's where it would go. You can recenter the map if needed. You can get location information of a site that you're not at, by clicking on that, hit location information. It'll take you to the location tab, and it'll have its own set of stuff. But I'll go over that. So first things first, set it to Mars orbit. In this case, it might be Moon orbit, might be Vulcan orbit, might be other orbit, but you got to set that destination. And when you got that set, now your rocket has a target for where to go. And when you're ready to have it go, fire the engine. You can count down or whatnot. So let's go. 3, 2, 1, go. And there it goes. Off into the deep blue space. So let's look at what's happening. Now, it's going to change 400 meters per second before it reaches space. And here you'll see my fuel time is over 1,000 seconds, which is cool. My ETA travel time is 110 seconds. That's quite lengthy. And you're just going to see all sorts of information here on your screen. So if you're concerned about your rocket, pay attention to this stuff. And you see my total acceleration is 3 meters per second squared. So basically every second I'm increasing my velocity by 3 meters per second. And of course it's slowly increasing because I'm spending fuel, which is dropping the mass. And so this is going to be a huge weight. So I'm just going to be coming back to skip all of the weights. So yeah, we'll be right back. Alright, it's made it to its destination. And interestingly enough, I was watching the altitude and it took about 26 kilometers to make it to space. So that means I can just, my rocket currently just barely cannot land at 25 kilometers. So it's probably going to be able to land once it's spent its fuel. Alright, so now our rocket is in orbit. So if I want to bring my rocket back, I could select the launch mount and then do the same thing, turn it on, and then it'll begin its landing procedure. But let's not do that because we don't want to land this sucker just yet. So if you need to clear destination for rocket, select it, clear destination, you know. So just keep that in mind that where you're going to go is going to have this orange target icon. So just keep that in mind. So now we hit orbit and we can't go anywhere. We can't do anything. So when you go to the location chart, you can see what actions you can take over here, and you can select which rocket you currently have linked to do this with. Obviously, I can't go anywhere else, so the very first thing I need to do is chart a location. Well, to chart, I need the scanner. So let's go on ahead and turn on all my scanners, like so. And you'll see the little scanner bar fill up so that you can kind of scan the next charting location. Now, it takes 20 seconds per scanner, which this is kind of why I recommend extra scanners to speed it up, unless the beta changes it and makes the scanners heavier, in which case, you know, that'll change some things. We will not get a full location until we fill up the progress to 100%. And as you can tell, this is what we need, this is how many locations we've charted, and this is how much we've got currently. And once you got that, once we've charted a new destination, it now tells us, whoa, we're going to Phobos. It's got a delta V of 151. And if we look at the map, oh, that's a new location. Now we can go there. So we can set destination, and then we can look at stuff related to that, if I remember right. Oh, right, because I don't have any fuel capsules, it won't tell me that. So let's, oh, right here, target velocity, 303 meters per second squared. So to get from there, the delta V 151, typically what I've seen, it's this distance times 2. That's usually what the delta V is. That's a very good estimation. So now we got to travel 303 meters per second to get to Phobos. So let's do that. And you see, because I'm in space, I have a much greater acceleration, so it won't take as long for me to get from place to place. Remember that Mars, the 3.5 gravity, was cutting into this acceleration of the engines, which was slowing my travel down in Mars. But now that I'm in space, I reclaim that extra 3.5. Now keep in mind that this is because I don't have as much mass on this rocket. If I had chosen an extra minor to go with my rocket, this would have been cut down some more, and I would have had a much slower acceleration. And you can watch it on the icon as it's moving from location to location. Oh, before I forget, this auto shutoff, when you reach a destination, it automatically turns a bunch of useless devices off. You know, turns off the engine, turns off scanners, analyzers, rocket celestials. It used to turn off IC housings, but now it no longer does that, thankfully. So if there's something that you wanted on, you either need to shut this off and remember to turn off your rocket when it gets to places, or keep it on and just turn everything back on. Alright, so now we've arrived at Phobos. So let's see what Phobos location is. There are no new sites to discover. It looks like we got to chart it out. So you know what? We're going to do the same thing. I'm going to tell this to chart, and we're going to be right back, okay? So, be right back. Alright, we're back. We charted everything. So, let's see. We got frozen vapors, we got rocky asteroids, we got metallic fields, and we got Deimos. So, I put a lot of fuel in my rocket, so let's see what the options are. So, Deimos has no new sites, and you can do this with every site. Click on the location, you know, just left click, hit location information. And frozen vapors has water vapor and volatile vapor. So that's actually kind of cool. So if you're struggling for water in Mars, you can just go to these frozen vapors and hopefully get some water. That'll be kind of neat to do. Let's see. What about rocky asteroid? Okay, we have iron rocks, copper rocks, gold rocks, silicon rocks. Chances are you're probably struggling for gold, so you may want this for gold. Just to see. Metallic field, silver, nickel, and lead. No cobalt though. So that might be later on. So, interesting. So now we have other possible sites that we can land in. And as we look at the location, the three sites close by, they don't have a very high delta T. So, 40.3 each. So, roughly double, 80.6. That's actually pretty neat. So if I wanted to go there, I could. But let's go a little bit further. Let me map it out just a little bit further. So I'm going to travel to Deimos and see what these two sites are. And we're going to go there and we'll be right back again. Alright, let's look at what we got here. Alright, so we charted new locations. It looks like another spot where we can go further out. And then we got ferrous asteroids with poor iron or dense iron. So I guess if we really need iron, or columnar asteroids with cobalt or silicon asteroids. Well, cobalt might be something we want, so you know what? I might actually head towards that. Because let's keep it in mind. I have a 815-second fuel time, and you want to keep an eye for how much you're spending. And so I believe it takes about 50-ish seconds to travel for that. Let's see that. Like 400 divided by 7, yeah, if I fire it briefly, yeah, it takes about 50 seconds to travel. So let's actually just make a quick pit stop right here. So let's actually go to the next side of things. And you see, it's not that far away, so we're just gonna actually stop, see what we can check out. Now, when we're on this new site, we're once again going to need to use the rocket scanners. Our location tab is going to change here. Now we can discover. So while we are discovering, what we're doing is we're looking for sites to mine. And now how much scan it takes to get a site is based on here. So I need 200 scan points to get a site. Every scanner is worth 30. So as you can see, once these hit, I'm slowly building it up. So it's going to take some time for me to scan new sites. And this is something to keep in mind, that the further you go, the bigger this number becomes. So that's really why I recommend scanner heavy rockets, to be able to scan down sites quicker. Now let's do a quick aside. I got my rocket celestial tracker on Neptune 67 and 79. I got an IC10 chip that I programmed really quickly to get that to this telescope, and we'll see. Yep, I'm seeing Neptune. Sweet. This is all that's all the telescope does. It literally just points you at it. Now I had the tracker facing 0, so I thought that would allow this telescope to match up with that, but it seems like I still had a 180 offset. So wherever the telescope is facing as far as the direction goes, then the rocket, make sure that you rotate the telescope 180 for it to match up perfectly. So yeah, that's just a blurb. And then if you want to change what the celestial tracker is doing, just change the index and it'll tell you what it's tracking. It's actually kind of a very neat thing. It literally has nothing of there's literally nothing to this, just, oh, let's track Phobos. But yeah, okay, so as you can tell, I've scanned down 2 sites, and you see that they're showing up here in locations. Now, one thing that I must say, if I was looking at a site, look, there's cobalt or silicon. So let's just say, for example, I did not want the silicon asteroids. You can only have 9 sites available, and when you set a site, you don't know anything about it because you have to go there and survey it with the rocket. So we don't even know how good or bad this large silicon is. But if, for example, I never wanted to bother getting a silicon asteroid, click on it so that it's highlighted like this, and then just go to delete location. It's going to ask you, do you want to delete the location? You cannot delete a location that the rocket is there on. So we'll delete location, goes away, and now you can get a brand new site on there too. So this is something to keep in mind, that when you fully deplete an asteroid node, like you either fully deplete it or you don't want it, just delete the location. You have to rescan more sites at the parent, at the location that produces these resource sites. But this is essentially how you have functionally infinite resources. So now we are going to tell this, I'm going to get one more site, and then we're going to tell it to go to this cobalt asteroid to see what we got available for us. And I'll show you how to do the survey. Come on, there we go. Well, it looks like we got another silicon. That's fine, whatever. We're going to that. Now, keeping in mind, so I still have 800 seconds of fuel time. It took about 100 seconds to land, so I'm still way good on fuel, so I could have probably traveled farther. But this is really why you don't want to have too much mass. You can travel farther. So, come on, get there. Meanwhile, we're tracking Phobos. I'm just going to be staring at that while this is finishing, so I'm going to turn on our scanners. So now when we get to an asteroid site, you have the survey action that takes your scanners, or the mine action that takes your miner. You can't do both, you can only do one. I'd recommend doing survey so that you can tell exactly how good or bad this is compared to the parent node. So in this case, the first thing that's going to hit is the composition, more than likely. Composition and size. Well, this is a cobalt asteroid. That's kind of no-brainer. When we look at that, cobalt asteroid has cobalt. My size is 2.54. When we compare it to the parent, size 2.54. So that's kind of middle ground. Next, we're going to get the density. Density is 2.86. So let's see, density 2.86. Ooh, that's on the upper end. That's actually pretty high up there. That's neat. The last thing we're going to get is richness, 2.52. All right, so compared to the parent node, 2.52. That's actually pretty high. So if you are actually tracking the resource sites to see whether it's worthwhile for you to mine or not, you can do that with your scanner rocket. You'll get how the resource site rolled, and you can decide if you actually want to go for it. Like, for example, if it rolled a size of 2, richness of 1, density of 1 for this cobalt asteroid, it's probably going to be one of those that you're just going to, nope, delete it, forget that it existed, be willing to spend a little bit of fuel to just go back and get it. Now, while this is scanning, you'll see that I got the 200% mining boost. So that means whatever I mine, I get 10% extra yield. It's to your advantage that when you have a good site, that you sit a scanner rocket to get, to finish out the scanning for the extra yield. So now let's talk about it. The composition is simple. When you mine, you get 1 space ore or 1 space ice, depending on what it is, and this is exactly what it is composed of. So every space ore I mine in here is composed of 0.1 grams of cobalt. You do need a centrifuge to get this. So after I centrifuge 1 space ore from this site, I get 0.1 cobalt. The size tells me the base yield and how much density and richness degrades as you keep mining there. When richness degrades, that means your yield is lower. So my base yield is 3. But I have a 10% mining boost, so technically it's going to be 3.1. That may not make it go any better, to be honest. Richness is a huge boost to your yield. As you can see, it gives me 438%, boosting my yield to 12. Plus that 10%, that boosts my yield to 13. If I had an ore miner head, I will further get a 20% boost on top of that, and it would have gotten probably about 14. Now, density determines how long it takes for the miner to finish, and it estimates roughly how many resources you can get from here, but it's not exact. What really determines how much there is in here is once density hits 0, this site is completely gone. But more than likely, richness is going to drop before that. So we're gonna leave this surveying until we get our 1000% mining boost before I go back to mining. So what's a good site for me to keep track of? Oh, we already tracked the sun. Let's track Jupiter. Alrighty, so we're gonna leave that running, so be right back. Huh, Phobos is actually pretty close. 9,240 kilometers, and it is roughly... Oh, there it is. There's Phobos. Interesting. Okay, sorry, I getting distracted. Anyway, so it took quite a while, but it's finally got everything. So now I got my 25% mining boost. So once you get that 1000%, as you can see over here, you don't need to worry about scanning any longer. So we can turn off the scanner. And, ooh, my batteries are 72%. So you can see that I burned through batteries using my scanners. Now comes the final thing, the rocket miner. Turn on your rocket miner, and now we hit mine. You see, I'm going to get 15 ore per mining action here. And so, with that, and you see that now I have 14. And that's because every time this completes, my richness and density drop. Ever so slightly. The size determines how quick the drop is. But, you know, if I had more miners, I'd be getting the ore faster. And these two will be dropping faster. So, basically, now I just leave this to mine, however much I want to mine. My miner tells me exactly how much is in there currently. It spits out the ore once it hits 100, and then it'll go to the cargo storage. So, yeah. That's basically it for your rocket actions. That's all 3 screens. That's how to mine, that's how to scan, that's how to survey. And now, again, this isn't the fully completed Martian map, but at least usually the very first couple nodes you get is something that you kind of need, like water or volatiles. Now, if I were to mine and get 100 waters, you know, that's 20 moles of water times 100, that's 2,000 moles of water from just one stack of water. So you can see you can get a lot of gases very quickly. Now, if you are struggling for fuel, for example, this water could be decomposed to fuel. Fuel up rockets, send them back out, keep doing that repeatedly. That's how it's almost infinite. So with that in mind, I think I am going to let this fill up so that I have something nice to bring back when I go over landing. So when we return next, I'm going to tackle landing because that's going to be a big thing. And I want to show you how it works, how it happens, how you can do it manually. And that's about all that I will go for it because I don't want to go too crazy on scripting as far as that. So hope to see you then. Thank you and have a good day. Bye-bye.